So I have a community building and community organizing background, and this is a really neat diagram that I use all the time, which is drawing people in and creating a community. First you have this level of awareness, which is where you all are right now, and then hopefully I can bring you in and give you an orientation level where you feel like you're part of the community, or others. And then the action level where people will start getting involved with what's going on in the community, and then finally, and at the heart of community, is celebration. So this is kind of our values slide of how we're going to be running the Biochar Association. This is our membership model. We're going to charge $10 a month for individuals, $5 a month for students, and $250 a quarter for businesses. And this will help support our grants and donations and fundraising side, which will also support the third leg, which is programming. So we'll kind of not rely on one thing too much, and have some nonprofit and kind support and members as well. And that's it. And we'll go to questions. And one final Bucky quote. Whether we are able to be a complete success or failure is in such critical balance that every smallest human test of integrity, every smallest moment-to-moment decision tips the scales affirmatively or negatively. That's it. Questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
So is biochar mostly carbon, or is there any nitrogen in it?
It's mostly carbon, but depending on how it's been made, there could be some nitrogen in there as well.
We've heard from the ranchers in the Southwest that their fertilizer costs have gone up 300% and 400% because China's buying up all the American fertilizer, because China is buying up huge areas of Africa and South America for agricultural production.
Yeah.
So it's putting putting the farmers and ranchers through extreme hardship in this country because they cannot afford regular fertilizers anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
So does this offer a potential alternative to that? But they're going to need NP and K, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium.
Yeah.
Not just carbon.
Right. So there's ways to charge or inoculate the biochar with whatever your soil needs, and there's a lot of different ways of getting the NP and K.
What you said was the biochar creates the habitat for the bacteria to grow in, and when the bacteria get consumed, that releases nitrogen.
Yes.
There you go. Well, the biochar very much wants to hold on to nitrogen, so we pretty much say you have to inoculate it, or it'll suck the nitrogen out of the soil that you've got. But in conventional agriculture, you can would need to apply less because it holds on to it more in the root zone. So this would then provide a filter matrix against nitrogen, falling out of your root zone and down to the water table, which is bad for everybody. So then we begin to establish kind of a surface filter matrix that actually benefits both the quality of your groundwater and the nutrient requirements of your plants. So that's the real multi-benefit that's part of what she's talking about.
Yeah, and this type of nitrogen doesn't get leached out of the soil.
Now there's one thing I wanted to challenge about what you said. You said it's only biochar if you put it in the ground. Well, it's biochar if you eventually put it in the ground. If you choose to use it as a filter medium, for example, you've got a dairy and you've got some surface runoff that's creating a problem in the creek.
Yeah.
You could use raw biochar in a trench filter and have that sit there, filtering nitrogen compounds for a while.
Yeah.
Then take that material out, put in fresh raw biochar, and then that stuff's ready to go use in agriculture.
Yeah.
So it becomes a multi-stage value stream material that provides a series of ecosystem services. So in that sense, you're talking about a filter medium that becomes a soil amendment. But the main thing that defines it as biochar, in my view, is that its total life cycle is a non-destructive use.
Yeah, yeah. think as long as it's used in the soil, eventually it's...
In other words, I'm happy to sequester carbon if it's stored in a silo somewhere. That's going to keep it out of the atmosphere. So from a climate point of view, you can be, that crude about it, but
Right.
you want it to be, useful in multi-levels.
Yeah, definitely. And you can use it as an air filter too. There's a lot of different
Right.
kind of
And in that
intermediate
sense,
uses.
if you do, you can use pyrolysis again to clean that char and reuse it, so you don't have to destroy it.
Yeah.
You can keep it in a non-destructive matrix and purge it of volatiles that were there, and then use that again. So there's a way to hold on to the carbon even in cooking.
Yeah. Thanks for that.
How long does it take to pull the heavy metals out of the soil using biochar?
I don't know as much about the remediation stuff. I'm just getting into that now. But I can put you in touch with someone who does.
Do you know what kinds of heavy metals?
John Medema in Oregon is... that I don't know either. It hasn't been studied quite as much. People are more looking at it as a soil amendment, not as a remediation tool. But yeah, he's using it right now in zinc, taking zinc out of the storm. What's that? Yeah.
Biochar Solutions has an ancillary company that deals with forest remediation.
Yeah,
So,
and that's the company that did the Hope Mine.
yeah,
They did like a mine tailing
used to be
site.
Biochar Engineering, and then
Yeah.
they combined, and I think one of their principals moved here.
Yeah, Morgan
Yeah.
Williams. Yeah. They put biochar on a mine tailing site that was just not growing anything,
Barren.
not even a weed. I mean, nothing. And a year and a half later, or a year later, it was waist high. The grass. It was just filled with like
Trees,
Yeah.
grass, it's amazing.
From what I've read, it strikes me, and I can't confirm this, so I'm very interested to have the discussion on mine tailing be one of the presentations at the conference. But the idea that with its ionic capability, the same mechanism that allows it to manage things like nitrogen, it actually binds up the toxic heavy metals in a way that makes them unavailable to the plants.
Correct.
Which means that the toxicity to the plants is bound up in the biochar, so the plants can do other things around all that. The stuff is still there, it's just kind of locked up. So that's how I understand the mechanism from what I've read.
yeah.
And then the microorganisms that are housed in the charcoal are not
Well, there's, like she suggested, there's some indication that maybe this is creating some sort of a breakdown mechanism that wouldn't otherwise be there. I don't know.
It's not very well studied. That's kind of speculative.
So in the production of biochar in having to do with a gasifier, what needs to be done to produce more carbon and less ash as your final product?
There's probably someone in this room that can answer that better than I can.
Well, what they're doing here is really a continuum of, it's like the BEC and the GEC. The core the core device is essentially the same.
Yeah.
It's what you do with the gases in the BEC. They just condensate out those gases that they're now running through a whole lot of hoops to manage and improve to make to a quality that's usable in an engine.
Yeah.
And then they're actually, using up, destroying the char to actually make better gas. So that's all part of the process. Otherwise you just separate it and you find something else useful to do with the gas. In the case of the kind of the general construct, if you take those gases and just flare them, like bring them back into the process to heat more material for biochar, you're still going to have waste heat that you could capture with some sort of, simple heat exchanger and then use for process heat, heating water, whatever, and then you're going to end up with a net amount of char. So you can, as an energy efficiency trade-off, cogeneration with heat is probably your best bet. But within that, then you're actually looking at as she was pointing out, a carbon negative energy configuration. And that's what we want. We want that carbon to come out of the air and into the ground.
We'll be addressing that in the next presentation.
Okay, great.
Great.
If I could add a little bit, actually, if you want biochar, you don't use a gasifier. You use a pyrolyzer.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
You
But
don't
it's
want
a-
any reductions.
It's a technological continuum, it's just a little shift in the design.
Time for more?
Let's do 2 more questions.
2 more?
Can you describe how the little oven works that you can use at home to make biochar?
We'll
Yeah.
be demonstrating that in the next presentation.
Perfect.
And how, my second question, I'm sorry, is can you use coal for biochar, just crush it up and use it in your soil?
No, like coal from
Well, that's a graphene.
charcoal?
Can you use coal?
Coal.
Oh.
No.
No.
You could use hardwood charcoal.
Hardwood charcoal.
Yeah. There's some really good biochar out there
Pyrolyze
that's
coal
to me.
and create biochar. Sure.
Yeah.
You kind of want to test it because a fuel base, something designed for fuel, could have a lot of tars on it, and that's still great fuel. It's not so good for soil amendment.
It's not as attractive as using biochar because biochar, as Jim said yesterday, already sucks the carbon out of the atmosphere, binds it up, and all we're doing is taking it a step further, putting that carbon back into the earth rather than burning it. So that's why biochar is such an attractive course material, or starting material for biochar generation.
You're talking about the wood took it out of the atmosphere, not the process of making biochar.
No,
The leaves.
The
Yeah.
leaves.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
you're using the carbon of the wood.
The biomass takes it out of the air, makes it solid, but then we lock it down in a form that it's not going to go back to atmosphere for a long time.
Right. The leaves sequester and the biochar captures.
Photosynthesis is our big friend.
Yeah.
Better than letting the wood rot
Yes.
Right.
on the ground.
Okay. One last question?
What percentage is a good mix as a soil amendment?
You do like 10% by weight. It depends again on your biochar and your soil that you're using.
And
but-
depending on the crop too. There are a
And
lot
what
of
you're growing.
literature being generated right now. A lot of this work was originally done in the tropics, where the soil chemistry is a lot different than what we have here in temperate climates. So new information is being generated as we speak.
So in terms of updated information, is part of your mission to keep your organization with that material available, whether it's on the website or through the network of
Yeah,
members?
yeah.
Is that the idea?
The International Biochar Initiative has a bibliography of all biochar research being done. So that's really the best place where that's being constantly
Google
updated.
biochar and you see more material than you can.
But that's the
Yeah.
problem.
Yeah.
That's my problem.
But you need like a filter for it. But yeah, that's one of our goals is actually to kind of filter all that information. And one of the things we're going to do is create infographics with Jess's awesome design skills to kind of break down. It's really complicated, and there's so many different lenses through which to look at biochar, whether you're looking from a soil science or ecosystem services or whatever lens. Try to tell the biochar story through kind of simple visuals, but then also use some of that literature that's out there already that hasn't been publicized and make that a little bit easier to understand.
And
So-
just to let you know, one of the reasons we've constructed the focus of the conference as a vehicle for communicating practical application. We've had a lot of conferences, internationally and a few in the States. And it's been very head-oriented, very academic, very, this is the minutiae of biochar here. We're trying to weave all that into a context that we can, deliver to agriculture as a message of practical application. So that's the thematic focus of our conference to try to address some of those questions.
Biochar by Johannes Liebman.
The more comprehensive book is by Paul Taylor.
Oh yes, Biochar Revolution.
Biochar Revolution.
Excellent book.
That covers everybody and everything.
I think there's a couple of copies of that in the shop next door, in what we call the library. You can take a look at it.
Yeah, excellent. And love talking about biochar, and I'll be here all weekend, so come find me. And if you're interested in supporting the initiative with whatever your brain power, manpower, whatever, or financial power, come see me.
Thank you.